Good morning. Welcome to episode 67 of Duval Rundown. My name's Gus Logue. Today, I will be by myself like I am every Monday. I think this will be a pretty fun show during the season, especially when everyone will have something to say after each Jaguars game, including myself. But for now, for the offseason, we're just going to do a lot of mock drafts. I'm going to talk about some trade candidates today. But if you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, please let me know in the live chat room so I can see them and answer them. All right, it's Gus Logue time. I know 4 a.m. So, like I said, we're going to do a 7-round mock draft. Before we get into that, I just wanted to go over some potential trade targets because I think that this is an interesting time in the NFL offseason to look at potential trade targets. NFL free agency actually starts in almost exactly 1 month, and so we're getting to that point where professional NFL players are starting to get moved and their contracts are starting to get decided and things like that. So I know that a lot of people get really into draft season and the NFL draft, but I always like kind of the quote-unquote pro scouting more. I'm always been an NFL over college football guy, and so for me, that's why free agency is so exciting, but also to look at potential trade candidates. And so the big fish, obviously, this offseason is Myles Garrett, the reigning, or not reigning anymore, but the 2023 Defensive Player of the Year, the best pass rusher of his generation, or at least after Aaron Donald. I think that anything would be worth giving up for Myles Garrett, but I think it is fair for if any Jags fans have reservations in terms of is it really does he really fit the Jaguars' timeline? Because Myles Garrett is obviously the kind of trading piece or the caliber of player that you would assemble if you feel like you're one player away, one Pro Bowl or all pro caliber player away from winning a Super Bowl. And considering the Jaguars didn't make the playoffs last year or the past 2 years in a row, it'd probably be a little bit of a big swing, but I think that the Jaguars should certainly at least entertain the option. I think at edge rusher, Trey Henderson, is that his name? Trey Hendrickson from the Bengals is another really interesting option and would potentially be like a great option to look at after Myles Garrett is traded, because the Bengals are kind of infamously the cheapest franchise in the league. They've already paid Joe Burrow, but I believe they still need to pay Jamar Chase, and they're just not going to pay T. Higgins. And there's, I think, Jermaine Pratt, a linebacker, requested a trade from the Bengals because there's only so much money to go around in the NFL in general, but especially up there in Cincinnati. And so I think it'll be interesting if Trey Hendrickson ends up getting moved. And I think that Myles Garrett is objectively a better player, but I think that Hendrickson actually had a pretty strong case to win 2024 Defensive Player of the Year. And he's definitely clear-cut top 5 edge rusher. And so it'll be interesting to see if him and Myles Garrett get moved, what the cost difference is, because I think that there's probably shouldn't be that much of a difference in how much it takes to trade for either of those guys. But obviously Myles Garrett is just way more popular. A lot more people know his name. It's not like he's playing in a bigger market compared to Cincinnati, but he's freaking Myles Garrett. And so it'll be interesting to see how all that shakes out. I think I would definitely be interested in Myles Garrett, but I think that smart teams are going to be really looking closely at Trey Hendrickson to see if they can get a discount relative to whatever Myles Garrett costs. Javal asked in YouTube, do you think for offensive line they play more zone or gap/man scheme? I know I asked Chip, and he said the offensive line as is currently better fitted for zone, but maybe Tony and Cohen want to draft some bullies. Yeah, I would agree with Shipley where I think that the offensive line is currently better fitted for zone. I think that the Jaguars, when they originally hired Phil Rauscher under Doug Peterson's inaugural 2022 Jaguars staff, the plan was definitely to be a zone-heavy scheme. And I think that was partly because they thought that it would fit the personnel that they had currently, but more than anything, the Jaguars and Doug Peterson and Press Taylor wanted to be a zone-oriented run attack. But then over time, we actually saw a lot more diversity, I think, partly out of necessity, but then partly out of just straight-up creativity from Doug and Press. But it was back in 2022 and 2023 when we were seeing the run game in Jacksonville get a lot more diverse. And so to answer your question, Duval, I think that for the offensive line, they'll start out playing more zone originally because I think that's what they're better equipped to do. But I know that Liam Cohen started out running zone a lot last year with the Bucs, and they ended up transitioning into a super gap man heavy team. And I think that was partly because it fit Bucky Irving's strengths better, their rookie running back, but mostly just because it fit the strengths of their offensive linemen more. And so, again, I would expect for Jacksonville to run more zone than gap schemes, but I wouldn't be surprised if they made an effort to kind of run more gap schemes as soon as within a year. To go back to, we're going to do a mock draft coming up pretty soon here, but to go back to trade candidates real quick, I think Kyle Pitts would be a pretty interesting one if Evan Engram wasn't on the team. I mean, of course, there's a chance that Evan Engram might get cut, but I think if I were a team that just had like absolutely nothing at the tight end position, then I would be interested in trying to rejuvenate Kyle Pitts' career. There's a lot of interesting names that like wouldn't really become interesting to me unless they were cut. So like Deebo Samuel and Cooper Kupp are the obvious ones. I think Devontae Adams probably fits into that bill too, even though I've loved Devontae for a while now. But like those three receivers are definitely handy receivers that any like team with Super Bowl aspirations, they would like to have those veteran wideouts on their team, but at the right cost, because I don't think that the Jaguars should have any interest in trading any draft assets for Cooper Kupp or Devontae Adams or Deebo Samuel on any of their contracts. It's just too much for how much wear and tear all those guys have in their body, and they're all pretty clearly on the downslope of their careers, I think. They're still like definitely valuable players to have. But yeah, I just wouldn't know about giving up trade assets. But the one receiver that I think is interesting, I know that DK Metcalf has been in rumors for a little bit now, but I've been floating Garrett Wilson for the 5th overall pick for the last week or so, and I definitely don't mean like Garrett Wilson for the 5th overall pick straight up, because that'll probably be a win for the Jets, just because Garrett Wilson is only about 2 years away from being able. He's probably eligible as soon as next offseason, honestly. But Garrett Wilson is going to need to get paid pretty soon. And Garrett Wilson for a first-round pick, maybe, but Garrett Wilson for a top 5 pick might be a little bit rich. But the reason that I bring up Garrett Wilson is like partly because, yeah, like Garrett Wilson in Liam Cohen's offense playing alongside Brian Thomas and catching passes from Trevor Lawrence sounds pretty cool. But the main reason that I bring it up is because I think that the Jags are actually in a really good trade down position with a 5th overall pick because the Raiders have the 6th overall pick. And so I think it's a safe assumption that Cam Ward is going to be taken within the first 4 picks. I think an even safer assumption is that there will be at least one quarterback taken somewhere in the first 4 picks of the NFL draft. And there's really 2 quarterbacks that are like actually first or capable or deserving, I guess, of going in the first round. And so if there's one quarterback that gets taken in the first 4 picks, say it's Cam Ward, and then Shedeur Sanders is still available at the 5th overall pick, then I think the pick could suddenly become a hot commodity because the Raiders have the 6th overall pick, and they have been linked to Shedeur Sanders for a really long time. The Jets pick, so they could potentially leapfrog the Raiders and get the 5th pick in order to take a quarterback. And so surely they would like to have Garrett Wilson around to be able to pair with that young quarterback. But again, like the main point of me bringing up Garrett Wilson is less about Garrett Wilson and more that I think that the number 5 pick could potentially be for sale. And so with that, let's do a little draft. I'm gonna Duval said, I know Shedeur used to train with Tom Brady, so if he falls, I can see Raiders taking him. So dangling 5 to trade down is smart. Yeah, so let's do a mock draft, and what I'm going to do in this one is try to trade down from 5 and see what we can get. So PFF worked okay for me last time. Let's run it back. Seven rounds. That doesn't hit the same as 7 hours of commercial-free football. Now, 7 rounds of Jacksonville Jaguars mocks. All right, well, let's start draft and get to the 5th pick and see what offers we get. Oh, all right. Well, this mock had Cam Ward going first and Shedeur Sanders going second. So the strategy didn't really work out for me the way that I was thinking. But we're still going to try to trade down. Hopefully, you guys understand what I'm saying. Like, I think that with the Raiders picking at 6th, the Jets picking at 7th. I mean, the Saints probably don't need a quarterback for this season, offseason necessarily, but Saints hypothetically maybe would want to pair a young rookie quarterback with Kellen Moore. And so there's 2 to 3 teams, I think, that would potentially be interested in trading up to 5. And that's including the Raiders, because if the Raiders get the sense that the Jets are interested in trading up, then the Raiders might just move up themselves one spot. I'm pretty sure we've seen that before in the NFL. So yeah, we've got, let's just try to make a trade with the Jets. 5th, we're going to give up the 5th pick, and we're going to get back the 7th pick and the 42nd pick. Should we just see if that works? Trade accepted. All right. So we still get the 7th pick. Let's see who the Jets take. Travis Hunter. Makes sense. Okay. So currently, the Jaguars, we now have the 7th overall pick, and these are the players that are off the board. Quarterback Cam Ward, quarterback Shedeur Sanders, edge Abdul Carter, wide receiver Ted McMillan, cornerback Travis Hunter, and cornerback Will Johnson. And so since Will Johnson and Travis Hunter are off the board, and Ted McMillan, then like pretty clearly we got to go with the trenches here for Jacksonville. And so to me, it's between Mason Graham from Michigan, Will Campbell from LSU, and I don't know. These Georgia guys need to be ranked higher. Michael Williams from Georgia might be a top 5 pick. I definitely expect him to be a top 10 pick. And there was another Georgia guy too, like Javon Walker or something. And I don't know where it is. Anyway, we're going to go with Will Campbell because I know that people in Jacksonville are getting very excited about Mason Graham, and understandable. I don't have anything bad to say about Mason Graham, but I think that like it's been pretty evident from Liam Cohen that, or I think in the small sample size that we have of Liam Cohen talking Jaguars, that he really wants to invest in the offensive line. And when you add in the facts that Tony Baselli is a former offensive lineman, and Ian Cunningham, who seems like the front runner for the general manager position, is also a former offensive lineman. I definitely think they're gonna make heavy investments in the offensive line this offseason. I think that's one thing you can bank on. And so maybe they sign a starting caliber guard in free agency, and they don't really feel like they need to spend a 1st-round pick on offense. But I'm going to go ahead and take Will Campbell at 7th overall. And we get the 42nd pick too, so an extra 2nd-rounder. Probably end up taking a defensive lineman there since I skipped on Mason Graham. Yeah, big. Looking back on the comments now, let me remove this real quick because that's pretty ugly. Big Steve said on YouTube, if Travis Hunter is there, not trading. Yeah, that's totally fair. I think, like, I just went into this exercise wanting to trade out of the 5th pick, just to see what would happen. But I do agree with you, Big Steve, that if Travis Hunter is there with the 5th pick, then it's probably not worth it to trade back, especially if you're only trading back 2 spots to 7th. Javal said Mason in our trade down is robbery. Javal said Membu from Mizzou is a good fit. Oh, is that the guy who's like, yeah, no, I agree with you, Javal. He's a guy that I've like made sure to keep on my radar. Membu from Mizzou. All right, well, let's get to our 2nd-round picks. Let's speed this up a bit. All right. Elik Aomanor immediately sticks out because I saw a video of him torturing Travis Hunter on my timeline this morning. Although I think in Hunter's defense, it was like his first game back from injury or something. Cam Scatabato, or whatever his name is, with a 36 overall pick would be pretty rich. Okay, Jalon Walker is who I was talking about earlier. So, screw it. I'm just going to take him because I think there's no way he's not going to be a first-round pick. Okay, so far we've got Will Campbell, offensive lineman, and Jalon Walker, who's kind of like an edge hybrid front seven player. And so I took Jack Beck, in the last mock that I did. But I feel like that was a little bit rich, especially since I think that this receiver class might not be as good as like in previous years, but it's still a pretty solid class. And I think there's interesting names deeper that I'll get to. So I don't know. Anyone watching right now, you guys like any of these names? Caleb Johnson's really good, but Jaden Higgins, maybe I'll take a receiver here, honestly. I like Higgins and Savon Williams a lot. But maybe I'll see if either of them can fall to 70 overall. Andrew Armstrong, Arkansas wide receiver. TJ Sanders at 3 tech. We don't get Mason. Okay, Rich Long said Higgins. Let's pull the trigger on Higgins. Higgins is like most common player comp that I've seen is Kenny Golladay. And so I think basically my takeaway from that is that like Higgins is a really good receiver, especially in contested catch situations. It's probably a little bit of an underrated route runner. And so like to me, the Kenny Golladay comp tells me that he's great at contested catches again, and probably doesn't have like the best burners, the best long speed. But I don't know. I think he would still be able to be a deep threat. Alfred Collins, that name sounds familiar, but I don't know what from. Ooh, Quinshon Judkins. Let's see what running backs are still around. Ooh, yeah, we're going to go with Trevor Etienne later on. That's going to be a good football pick. All right, so back to the 70th overall pick. Jags do need some safety. I don't know a lot about Sebastian Castro or Kevin Winston Jr., but there's also Lathan Ransom. I didn't take Lathan Ransom because, again, I think the Jaguars need to add to their secondary, and I've got a cousin whose last name is Ransom, so there we go. It is February, and so that is the explanation you're going to get from my mock picks this time of year. Pick 88. Let's see what we got so far. We got Will Campbell, Jalon Walker, Jaden Higgins, and Lathan Ransom. Yeah, we're taking Harold Fannin because I want to take a tight end in this draft because it is supposed to be a really good tight ends draft. And Fannin is a name that I've seen a lot. So, easy peasy. Yeah, I don't know any of these names. Let's go back to receiver. Oh, no, well, we already got a receiver. Let's go back to running back. So wait on Trevor. I don't know any of these receivers anymore. What do you guys think? All right, I'll just get through this last part. I do think the Jags should draft a quarterback, especially as opposed to re-signing or not just keeping Mac Jones. And so let's go with Jalen Milroe. I like for my backups to have rushing value. And if maybe Milroe could just do the Jalen Hurts where he's essentially a runner and deep ball threat. Obviously, you'd kind of need the perfect system and whatever. And I didn't want to take away from Jalen Hurts because clearly he's a winner. But yeah, maybe Jalen Milroe, if he ends up in a really good spot, could follow a similar arc. Probably not, but that's just where my thought head is at. Let's go with What do we need? Probably a pass rusher and offensive line. So just back to trenches. All right, let's go with the Gator. Go Gators. We're going to go with this tackle, Brandon Crenshaw Dixon. Yeah, I'm gonna have to start doing more research before these. Maybe next week what I'll do is just like prepare a mock draft or like do a mock draft before the show and then explain my picks. Maybe that'll actually be able to provide more information to you guys rather than me just kind of going for it. We just took a tackle, so let's get another pass rusher. No, wait, I wanted Trevor Etienne, so we're going to take Trevor Etienne with this pick. Get the duo, the double Etiennes. I still haven't quit on Travis Etienne, but maybe I do need to let go of Travis and just put all my stocks into Trevor. We got 3 more picks. I'm going to use this one on a pass rusher, which it is the 6th round, so not really going to be able to expect much out of this guy. But Zeke Biggers, welcome to Jacksonville, my guy. That's a great name. Zeke Biggers. Yeah, you got to spot my team any day, especially my mock team. All right, let's go over with it. I feel like we got, what, 2 offensive tackles. I guess I didn't take an edge rusher. Interior defensive lineman and a linebacker. So let's just take the top edge. See if Johnny Walker, welcome to Jacksonville. Another good name. It's so weird seeing Jason Marshall this low. Oh well. All right, last pick, folks. We could go with Graham Mertz, but we already have a quarterback. If anyone like recognizes any of these names, I don't know if I'm more impressed with you or more horrified by you. But well, just straight up, what is the coolest name that I can pick? Mac McWilliams. Welcome to Jacksonville. Could probably go for another cornerback. Yeah, all right. So I think starting next week, I will do a mock draft before the show, and then I will kind of explain my picks, and then we can talk about it that way. And then I don't need to go back and forth to be able to monitor the comments too. So, yeah. I gotta take a screenshot of this though, so that everyone can roast my draft online. All right, that's saved. All right, to recap, appreciate everyone for sticking through that, especially the audio listeners. But in this 7-round mock draft, I went into it wanting to trade down from 5th overall just because I think more than most drafts for Jacksonville, this is a year that I think they can almost expect to receive a trade offer to get out of 5th overall. So I wanted to see how that might kind of play out. So with the 7th overall pick, I took Will Campbell, the offensive lineman out of LSU. Then I went with Jalon Walker out of Georgia, Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State, LaFon Ransom out of Ohio State, Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green, Jalen Milroe out of Bama, Brandon Crenshaw Dixon out of Florida, Trevor Etienne out of Georgia, Zeke Biggers out of Georgia Tech, Johnny Walker Jr. out of Missouri, and Mac McWilliams out of UCF. I had fun. That was fun just reading off those names. But hopefully you guys were able to take something away from this. Let me get this out of here again. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Yeah, Rich Long, you got me with the quarterback earlier. So yeah, all right. Next week, going to be more organized. Going to have a full 7-round mock draft. But yeah, thanks for sticking with me today, Jags fans. I'll be back tomorrow at 9:04 a.m. with Hayes Carline. We'll come up with something to talk about. I'm not sure yet, but we've been doing top 5 lists a lot on Tuesdays. I think that's been pretty fun. So maybe we'll do top 5 trade candidates and we can talk more about that. But whatever it is, Hayes and I will be back here tomorrow at 9:04 a.m. So till then, everyone take care. Thanks for listening/watching.